Hi, Megan. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Lauren?
I am good. So, everyone, this is Megan Fanale. She is the COO of Ability, which is a business and performance learning company based right here in Austin, Texas.
Yep,
Last
right
year,
downtown.
last year, you're downtown. Where are you?
Yeah, at Fifth in Colorado. We're in the Industrious co-working space.
We're at Firm Space. We're at West
Nice.
2nd Street. Yeah. So great. Well, had I known that, I would have just come on over. Anyway, Megan is, like I said, the COO of Ability, and she last year was the Austin Business Journal Woman in Business of the Year. Is that correct?
I was one of the many honored. Yes, it was a wonderful experience.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so happy that you're talking to us today. Normally in my chats, I've been talking to other independent consultants, and I wanted to start bringing in folks who were also serving a similar type of client, but doing something really different. Because
Yeah.
what I find is that my clients ask me for recommendations, they present me with
hmm
problems. And a lot of times I'm not the right person and we're not the right service to help them. And
Yeah.
in those situations, I always want to say no, that we don't do this and not assume, but redirect to somebody
hmm
great that does. And your company really stood out in terms of like not only what they're doing and what they're impacting, but the way that you
hmm
do it, I think is really engaging and interesting. So why don't we start by you giving us an overview of Ability and kind of like how you guys are different in the model you use to really help business people really learn and implement?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say I loved reading about how that's how Keenan Reed came into existence. Is you started and then you started to create this network of amazing people. And so just thrilled to be in conversation about that and with the people who are interested. So we're essentially out to reimagine business education. For so long, it's been take a course at a high level institution that takes a lot of money and a lot of time, or go through these asynchronous courses on a platform and click through, learn the individual skill and revisit it on the other side. And we want to fit the model in between, which is how do you build a network and how do you get practice and how do you get real world experience within a safe environment. And so that's what we want to do, is create a safe environment to practice those skills. And so our organization and our courses are built off of business simulation. So you're actually playing with peers, you're being taught by a expert facilitator, and you are in a scenario where you're practicing the skills you're learning and putting them to the test immediately.
Cool. So how does it work? Do you guys go into a particular client and design a program for them or have a cohort within that group, or can people come in and just join a group that exists independently through your company?
Yeah, both. So our bread and butter is going to organizations who want to close a gap and a skill set that is required to meet a business goal. So many of you out there might be working with Lauren and her colleagues and saying, I really need to achieve this business goal, but there's a skill gap, there's a talent gap in my organization to be able to do that. And that might be managing a P&L, understanding the impacts of the numbers. How do I drive value as an individual financially within the business, and how should I be thinking about it? And so my organization will come in, Ability comes in, and we say, great, let's create the right scenario for you, which might be a 4-hour simulation experience all the way up to a 12-week alternative MBA experience. And through that, you are learning how to build trust in the numbers and build your own trust in the numbers, how to read a P&L, how to build value in the business, how do you think about it. And for those of you who are like, oh, my business is too small to have a group of us within it, we also offer all of those courses as open enrollment. So you can just go to our website, ability.com, and self-enroll yourself into a group. We just actually had our one-day accelerator for business challenge, which is our business acumen training today. And so we offer them regularly.
Awesome. That's great. So you mentioned a topic close to my heart, something I ran about all the time, which is training around a P&L.
Yep.
And I find that there is a plethora of generalized leadership training, culture training, diversity training. All of these, what I would call softer skills, are things we see all the time. What I don't see is P&L. And if you really want to improve a business metric, your people, especially at that manager level, really have to learn,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is it? How is it structured? And then most importantly, like, how do you work in your team to manipulate and impact a number? How can you tell us a little bit about not, the structure of that program, what you're hoping that folks achieve when they come out of that?
Absolutely. So let me start by saying I recognize that business and financial acumen can be intimidating for anyone who isn't particularly in that accounting and finance field. I would not list it in my personal top 3 strengths, but I do know it well enough to like feel confident in it because of my interaction with our own curriculum regularly. And the key there is that I find that people go through your standard finance curriculum and P&L curriculum, and all you're doing is learning terms over and
Yeah.
over and over again. It's like going through Spanish 101 and learning the most basic things over and over again and then trying to move to Mexico City and speak Spanish. It's just hard to do. It's terribly intimidating. The difference with us is you're going to learn the concepts and then you're going to go in and you're going to apply them immediately by trying to run your own business. So all of our simulations are competitive and dynamic. That means that, Lauren, you and I would be competing. You'd be on a team of 2 to 3. I'd be on a team of 2 to 3. And every decision that my team makes on pricing, on payment terms, on investment would directly impact your business outcomes in the same way that Pepsi and Coca-Cola directly impact one another in their decisions on a daily basis. And then at the end, we look at the results. It's compiled immediately. Within seconds, you can see how you did in that particular round. And then you're sent back in to strategize, and you have to connect the dots yourself as the learner, as a team, to say, well, what did the competitors do? And how is that different from what our strategy is? And now how do we have to adapt our strategy? And you're also looking at the numbers for yourself and what your forecast is for the next couple of quarters. And you're playing rapid rounds. It's like 20 to 30 minutes at a time. So it's not like days to play like old simulations used to be. And what's also really nice about it is if you're like me, and anytime you learn a new game, the hardest part is learning the rules and learning how to play it. We've got expert facilitators who have run their own businesses, have sold their own businesses, have managed major P&Ls at major organizations, as well as supported small businesses and grown and exited them. They sit down with you and help you understand the numbers and then relate it to what's happening in your world. And that's what's most important. We can build a super cool game, but that's not going to help you manage a P&L better if you can't take the time to think about how it relates back to your P&L, your business, and your business goals. And so we make sure that we do that as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's that real life guide is really important for making the discovery stick.
Yes,
and to driving the
100%.
conversation around, okay, well, what does this mean for our business? How would we apply this skill back here? Where should I be looking on our P&L to understand like the consequences of the decisions that I make? So that's great. I mean,
Totally agree.
we were talking that you guys do a simulation round every year in orientation at the Macomb School of Business right here at the
We sure
University of
do.
Texas of Austin,
Yeah.
where I am a proud alum. I think it's great because I will tell you, I went to business school. I did fine. I didn't learn how to really, really run a P&L until I had my own. And
Mhm.
I look back on that and I think, what would I have done differently? I mean, like, I was at BCG, didn't know how to run a P&L. Like, what would I have done
Yeah.
differently if I had truly understood because it's not hard, it's just a game, right? So
Yeah.
how would I have done differently, and how would I have helped my clients if I had had that real world expertise in the way I do now? I think it's hugely helpful to have at the beginning of your education versus, you know, mid-career, let's say. So.
Totally get that. And we all figure out things on our own path, right? And you
Mhm.
obviously are successful. One thing I really want to call out, though, is there's a lot of people who have the skill set who don't give themselves credit for it because they don't have the language. And so, what I also love about people getting into the simulation is they realize how much they actually do know. and they self-realize where the gaps are between where they could get better. And so it's a motivator to not only build confidence, but also create self-awareness in the gaps.
Yeah.
And one thing that we do a lot, and McCombs is a great example, we do it during orientation for all full-time MBA students to say, hey, congratulations on getting into MBA. You're probably feeling really great about yourself right now, as you should. And look how hard it really is to run a business. Like, that's the intent of it. It is not easy to manage the people and manage the cash in the finances and manage your customers all simultaneously. You're going to be making imperfect trade-offs. And this is how hard it really is. And so it builds that empathy of there's so much more to learn. And that's a big thing that we think our learners take away from. And the last piece I'll say that makes it really powerful is that you're surprised when something doesn't work out, that your mind just thinks, well, of course, I'm going to take down the price and then people are going to come running to buy from me, right? Well, there's so many other pieces to it, and the simulation brings that forward. And so they have those self-ahas that actually sticks with them longer than if they read a sentence that says, just by taking the price down doesn't mean you're going to sell more, right? You could read that in a course and you intellectually get it, but when you're trying to win, and then you make this decision and then you're not winning, it's cemented in a completely different way because of the way the brain processes it.
So
plus it's just fun.
You have price elasticity baked into the algorithm. So they, not always, sometimes it's just a margin killer, We wrote an interesting article last month. I don't know, I didn't tell you this. So I write these business breakdowns and I write them with my stepson. Who
I love that.
Oh, he's awesome. I will tell you, I'm sure he won't watch all this, so it won't matter, but it's crazy that he's like not actually my biological son sometimes. Like, we just are like thinking the same way. But we wrote one about how Modelo took the #1 share place in American beer. So it dethroned Bud Light. And a lot of people were saying, well, that was because of the misstep that Bud Light made with the marketing and with Dylan Mulvaney. And really, the proof point is no. Modelo was on this path for a long, long, long time. Which, read the article because it talks about this like amazing deal and the DOJ, and there was like all this drama. But the net of it was they're not the cheapest. They are more expensive, but only enough so that it feels like an attainable trade-up. But that trade up actually drove their demand, right? That plus their marketing, which was like 4 Ps executed perfectly, made them, and who would have thought that a company who never advertised in English until 2015 could dethrone both Miller, Coors, and Bud Light? And they did. And they're still there, by the way. There was an article in Bloomberg this morning about how actually Bud Light is going to lose they're estimating, I don't know if it was Nielsen or some data source was estimating they're going to lose 15% of shelf share. So once you lose that shelf, it's crazy, right? Like, once you lose that shelf share, you're in, that's hard to recover from. If you kept the share and then you made some moves and tried to regain, you could do it, but they won't. No, Modelo is what do they call it? The fighting spirit. It's awesome. Anyway.
I love that. But it's also a great reminder, Lauren, to not get comfortable. Just because things are going really well, there's always somebody who feels like an underdog or has the underdog mentality that's pushing forward. And so you've always got to stay on your toes. And that's why it's so important to be consistently looking at, like, how can I be investing forward? And if you're spending a lot of time on your generic management leadership skills, like look to a place that's terribly it's terribly uncomfortable for me, I'll say that, but it might be uncomfortable for somebody watching this too. And that's exactly where to dig in for yourself.
So I will ask you one last question. Let us imagine you are, let's put ourselves in the shoes of one of my clients. So you're a VP GM at a Fortune 50 company. Okay.
Yep.
And what is the one, and what you're worried about, I think, is all of this sounds great. I'm bought into the idea of the real world learning and the facilitation and the gamification of it. How much time is it going to take my team?
God, time is the biggest obstacle, isn't it? It's the only resource we can't get more of at the end of the day. So the answer is anywhere from 4 hours to 12 weeks. And we can meet you anywhere in between. We're even launching, we're really excited to be launching a tool this summer that is actually AI practice conversation. So what if you could practice a P&L negotiation with somebody that that is an AI typed out? You get the scenario, you understand the concept of price elasticity, and you need to go in and pitch it to somebody to take the price to a specific spot. And you're actually typing with AI and negotiating and debating and deliberating, so that when you go in to have those real conversations, whether a management conversation or a negotiation with a colleague, you can go in more confident because you've already practiced it 1 to 5 times. And that is as little as a 20-minute time investment, right? And so so we can meet you where you're at, depending on what you need and what you're out to devote.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think helping that confidence boost by doing the practice before you get in front of the VP helps you take your rising stars and say, okay, I'm not going to present this, you are. Because you got to give them those at-bats, right? But it's worrisome. I'm lucky I have a good team, but I find it's worrisome if you have somebody who is inexperienced. How do you get the experience without the experience? That's going to be a really cool tool. Well, thank you for taking a couple minutes with me today. It's Ability, IE at the end, right? ABIL.
You got it.
I went to a weird school that never learned how to spell.
No,
we'll put it.
We misspelled it to get the .com, and we published our first book this spring. That's a compilation of our 10+ years in the industry, trying to figure out what is it that people want to learn. And so it's called the 12-week MBA. So if you want a good read, go out and check it out. It was published by BNN, sold at Barnes and Nobles. So would love for you guys to read it and just get a little bit more knowledge on how do you build trust with people, how do you build trust with the numbers, and then how do you bring it all together to be a better manager for the 95% who aren't getting MBAs but want to be great leaders out there in the industry.
Cool. Well, we'll link it. Thank you, Megan, so much. It was great to see you again, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.